Welcome to the very first episode of the For Liberty and Justice podcast. I am one of the hosts. My name is Nate Schatzline, and I am so excited for this episode. It's going to be awesome. We are about to dive in to exposing critical race theory inside of your schools. We're also going to be uncovering some surprisingly honest news from the CDC. And then later on, we're going to be interviewing a true patriot conservative candidate right here in Tarrant County. I can't wait. Let's get it started. Patriots, let's go. This is the For Liberty and Justice podcast. All right, we have an awesome show for you today, but we have to start with the most obvious, what we're talking about, which is critical race theory in schools. Now, I know what you're thinking. I know you're sitting here and you're like, Nate, that's a college thing. That's in law schools. It's the argument I hear all the time that critical race theory is not in our public schools. Oh, you couldn't be further from the truth. It is right there. It is in front of us. And let me tell you something. The left is fantastic at renaming things. They are the kings and queens of hijacking verbiage. And so we're going to expose that today. I don't know if you heard, but we made the papers, people. Me and a bunch of other patriots stormed Fort Worth ISD school board meeting. And here's a picture of us right there, me crossing the camera. It's not my good side, but you'll enjoy it anyway. And there we are. We're standing there. And I want to read like what, and you can read it right here, what it says: critical race theory protesters target districts' racial equity work. It's always a negative tone in the media, so you come to expect it. However, looking at this, let me just say, this one's pretty accurate. We are actually targeting the racial equity work. And I love that it says that because it acknowledges that there is racial equity work being done inside of Fort Worth ISD. And let me tell you something, we're not going to stop coming. In fact, January 25th, if you're in the Fort Worth area, you might be from all over the country, let this be an encouragement to you. We are partnering with Turning Point USA, and we are going down for a Liberty March where we're going to speak our mind, and we are going to make some change in Fort Worth ISD. So watch out for that. But here we are. I spoke at the Fort Worth ISD meeting, gave public comment. Now, keep in mind, they give you 1 minute, okay? 1 minute. And it's the most intimidating room you could ever walk into. About half the room's divided. But you know what? It is my public duty as a parent and as a taxpayer to speak out when I see an injustice. And let me tell you something. Equity race training inside of our schools is an injustice. So watch this 1 minute clip of me speaking in the Fort Worth ISD meeting, and then we're going to talk about it. SB 3 outlaws CRT. So my question for the board is, how are you going to respond? Will you abide by the law? Here's the danger of critical race theory. First and foremost, we're failing our students by indoctrinating them on social issues when they need to learn how to read and write. Secondly, I was a public school mentor for 10 years. I dealt with literally hundreds and sometimes even thousands of students that our programs would come in and help mentor. The bottom line is when you teach students how to be a victim and you begin to lower the standard for those students, what you're doing is you're harming their future as fathers and mothers. You're harming their futures as future business owners. The danger of equity is that you're saying that we need equal outcomes. The problem with equal outcomes is when you lower the bar to give everyone the same outcome, you are breaking the resilience that is built in a student when they learn how to overcome. We have to outlaw CRT, and we have to abide by the law. Thanks so much. So I show you that clip, and it's not just to, impress you or to say, oh, look at me speaking. No. I show it to you to remind you that it's not just me that can speak. It's you too. No one asked me to come speak at the Fort Worth ISD board meeting. In fact, it's not just an obligation. It is absolutely our right. It is our right as parents, as taxpayers, as taxpayer parents, to show up and speak into what is being taught to our children. Listen, we don't work for the school board. The school board works for us. And I wanted to show you that because, we've gotten a lot of backlash. Of course we have. We're used to it by now. But we've gotten a lot of backlash about me and what I said about equity. There's a lot of people that say, well, equity doesn't mean what you think it means. It absolutely does. I've been on the first hand right there in public schools watching as students. I've seen it done well and I've seen it done wrong. I've seen mentorship done well where we don't just push students down. We don't remind them of what they're up against, but we stand there and we say, we're going to work with you. We're going to resource you. We're going to help you. We're going to help you fight even the toughest. And we've saw kids, for years come out of drug addiction, come out of homes where there's drug addiction, come out of mindsets that were dark and mindsets that were going to keep them down. And we did that not by making them victims, but by looking at them and telling them it doesn't matter what's up against them, there's something greater inside of them. And that right there is what these students need. Here's the problem. All throughout this equity training throughout the country, we're seeing as people are lowering the standards for people, and get this, not because of learning disabilities, they're lowering, not because, they're disabled. No. They're lowering the standards because of the race or ethnicity of the student. What an offensive thing to do to our students. Is that not inherently racist right there? That we would lower standards because we don't think that student is capable? Because if maybe the home they grew up in, and we're labeling that based off of race, that, my friends, is true racism, which is why I'm against equity. Now, I love the idea of equality. That's what we should be going for, which is equal opportunity. We're going to put the same opportunity. We're going to help those students reach it. But hear me, I had this conversation just a few days ago with Texas Public Policy Foundation. And I had the honor of sitting down with them in Austin and going through, how can we fight this in the schools? Because the reality is SB 3, we just passed legislation that outlaws CRT, right? It talks about history, and it talks about you have to talk about true history. You can't say that America is systematically racist. Thank God, because we're not. I believe there was racist individuals in the past, but that doesn't mean that the system is messed up or that our America is an evil country. Absolutely not. America is the greatest country to ever exist in all of humanity, and you can argue with me all day long, but I can promise you this. You go back to any time in history and you offered somebody to live in America, they would take that bet right then and there. And so we have this legislation that was just passed that outlawed CRT. Here's the problem. The left is fantastic at hijacking language. They're fantastic at hijacking language. And so if we eliminate CRT, they're just going to name it something else. So I was sitting down with Texas Public Policy Foundation, amazing guys over there, guys and gals, and I love sitting down with them. This is what they said, and I'm just going to read it. It says, Nate, we can outlaw CRT, we can outlaw equity, we could outlaw every word they want to use, and they would just rename it something else. He said, in order to fix the problem, we're going to have to pass legislation that requires more transparency to the parents, and we have to fight for school choice so that parents can put their kids in a school that they can trust. Because how many of you know that it is not the government that should have the final say on our child's education? It is the parent that should have the final say on our child's education. Look, here's all I'm trying to say is that there are ways to do this. One of the reasons I'm running for HD 93 state representative is because I want to get in there and write legislation that is going to fight the power that these school boards have. We have got to fight for school choice. We have got to fight for parents to have the right to say, you know what, I'm done with this school district. I'm putting them this one over here. And you know what happens? What happens is when parents have the right to pull their student, that means they get to control population in those schools. And when population starts to drop in those schools, guess what also starts to drop? Government funding. And I'm going to tell you, the one best way to get people to move is to remove that money. And I'm telling you right here, right now, if we want to put the power back in the parents' hands, we've got to fight for school choice. But let me explain why it's important that we not only fight for legislation, but also that we get active right now. Number one, here's what critical race theory does, or race equity training, whatever you want to call it. Number one, if you believe that the system is rigged against you, and I want you to write this down, it's important. If you believe that the system is rigged against you, you'll stop playing the game. If you've ever played against anyone who cheats in a video game and board games, you know very quickly. One of my friends, he's also one of the people that you're going to see on this podcast, Steve Panate. This man cheats on every game I've ever played. He would be very angry if he knew I was saying this right now. But we play this game called Monopoly Deal. The problem is this man and his wife Esther win at everything. And after a while, I just don't want to play anymore. Here's the problem. We are training an entire generation to believe that America is evil, that America is against them, that the system is rigged against them. And the problem with that is when you believe that you cannot win, you will stop chasing the achievements of overcoming. When you believe that you have no hope, you will stop believing that you could actually be something. I'll prove it to you. I was recently, the American Psychological Association did a study on the power of hope. So in the study, it was published online in May, they say that colleagues compared the relationship between hope and productivity by analyzing 45 studies that looked at more than 11,000 employees across a variety of workplace conditions. So they concluded that hope accounts for 14% of productivity in the workplace. Now, this is big. More than intelligence, optimism or self-efficacy is more important. And so this is what they said in the study. Basically, a hopeful person does 1 day a week more work than a less hopeful person in a 7-day work week. He says it's quite a big chunk of the pie. You're telling me that they have proven that when you remove hope, you remove productivity, which means this: if we are constantly indoctrinating our students that we live in a gross, racist, nasty country that is against them because of the color of their skin, we are going to limit the productivity for them to get out of the conditions that they're currently in. Can I just say this? We don't live in a YMCA world. You're going to have to get out there and work hard to overcome some obstacles. Every single person has their battle. Every single person. I myself had spinal reconstructive surgery around 7 years ago. This is my story. And I believe it was actually 8 years ago now. When I was having that surgery, the doctor looked at me and said, I don't know if it's going to be possible for you to ever run again. And I looked at him and I knew the power of hope. I knew the power of hope because of my faith. And I knew the power of hope because I had seen it in action in the students that we were mentoring and everything that we were doing. And I looked at him and I said, what's the best case scenario? What's the best case scenario after this spinal surgery? Remember that doctor looking at me and saying, look, I don't like to talk best case scenarios. And I said, that's the problem. And here's the thing. I need a best case scenario so that I can chase after what I know could be mine. And he looked back at me and he said this. He said, I have a guy fighting in the UFC right now who had your surgery. And that's all I needed to hear. This year, I ran my first half marathon. You want to know why? Because I had the hope that I could. That's the way God created us. We need to see a vision of what we could be. Do you know what equity does? Equity tells us there is no way you could ever overcome your obstacle. So a white man has to hand it to you. A white man has to get out of the way so that a non-white person can be successful. What a lie. What a bit of evil. And it has to be stopped. And I know what you're saying. You're saying, Nate, that doesn't exist in our schools. There's no way. There's no way that type of teaching could be here. Here's what I want you to say. Number one, we can't treat students like that and say that there is no hope. Number two, CRT seeks to say that in order for minority communities to be lifted up, white people must be put down. Okay, here's the big thing. I am for all people rising up, for all people seeing success. But I want you to think about that statement. In order for minority communities to be lifted up, white people must be put down. Let's change it around. In order for Hitler's people to be lifted up, the Jews must be put down. It's the same train of thought. I'm trying to draw some parallels here for you. And that's not to say that we're in the middle of a Holocaust. That's to say that that's the same train of thought that caused the Holocaust. This is dangerous. This is dangerous ways of thinking. To think that in order for certain people to be successful, other people cannot be successful. That is anti-America. That is not the America I want to live in. That's not the America I want to teach our children about. That's not the America that I want to show them that is possible. We have to fight for unity. We have to fight for equality. So here we are. Look. You say, that's not happening. There's no way that we're going back in time. There's no way that people are putting down a certain race or group of people. Here's what I want to show you what happened in Denver this last week or a couple weeks ago. Get this. In Denver, elementary school, they made Wednesday, December 8th, a families of color only playground night. Is this not wild? Like, if you took that picture and you posted it in black and white, you would think that this was from segregation years. You would think that this was from early on. Like, there's no way, that's not our generation. No, number one, people of color only playground night? What kind of message are we sending our children? What type of message that you're telling me that in order to destroy racism, we need to bring back segregation? That in order to destroy racism, we have to become more divided, not more unified? This is how we destroy everything that we fought for in the civil rights movement. And you say, well, there's no way that's real. It's absolutely real, and it's happening in Denver right there. It's in front of you. What value does it bring to separate black and white families? Are you not sending the wrong message to our children that in order to be validated, we have to invalidate someone else? And let me just say, that's a dangerous thought. That's a dangerous message to be sending to our children. Here's the problem with our culture. This is why that we're so divided. The idea that our power comes from the invalidation of others. That's how you create future tyrants. That's how you create future business owners that abuse their employees. That's how you create future abusive mothers and fathers. That's how you create domestic violence. When you treat a generation you teach them that power comes from the putting down of someone else. We have to unify. We have to kill this. We have to remove that from our schools, and we have to lift each other up. And that's when we're the most powerful. You say, well, segregation, it's not happening in our city. I want to show you something. This clip, I couldn't believe it. I was shared this by a friend who was heavily involved in the resistance of CRT inside of Fort Worth. And I don't know where you live, but I do know that this one's personal for me because I saw this clip that you're about to see. And you would think that this was happening somewhere else, but this is right here in Fort Worth, Texas, which we consider the Red Wall, right? This is the conservative area of Texas. This is the conservative area of the country. And yet here we are. This is inside of a public school in Fort Worth, Texas. I couldn't believe it. I'm going to let you hear it. Just to set it up for you, this is a teacher standing on a stage and explaining a new policy that's going to be happening at lunch and is going to be happening in the classroom. And I want you to hear what they have to say. Listen to this. It's crazy. It's going to be hard to believe, but watch this.
To divide and create power, particularly in this country. And yet, it's not real, but it has real effects. And so we want to acknowledge that. And so you are asked to racially identify. And these little dots will lead you through important pieces today. When you go to lunch, you are to find a ribbon on your chair that matches your dot. We're going to have a community family-style lunch where we mix it up and we get to know each other. There are going to be cards on the table with questions to give you some stems if you don't know how to engage in conversations like these students do. And so you can kind of navigate yourselves through that. This is also where you will find yourself the second half of the day after lunch. We call them racial affinity groups. You're going to go into sessions with everyone who identified with your race. Because one of the things that we've been talking about in Equity and Excellence is finding out what each group needs in order to move this conversation forward. And the needs per group is very different. And this is our opportunity to learn what it is that you feel like you need in order to lean into this work. So that session will be
separated by race. Separated by race. Like you have to wear a badge. Does that sound familiar? You have to wear a badge to identify with your race. And what struck me is when she said there will be cue cards on the table in case you don't know how to talk to someone across the table. What a joke. What a joke. I don't know how to talk to someone who's not the same color as me. What world are we living in? Is this a Twilight Zone? This is crazy. This is crazy that this would actually be happening in our schools. This is something we have to resist. When I saw that video, I was not just blown away. I knew we had to get involved in this because we're teaching, hear me on this, if you constantly call an apple orange, eventually you're going to start to believe that the color red is orange. What do I mean by that, Nate? If you're constantly telling a student that we live in an oppressive society, eventually you will start seeing oppression where it doesn't exist. This right here is where we are at. Rather than unifying and saying, let's fight for people, now we're saying, no. We must suppress one race in order for the others to be lifted up. We must shut them down in order to advance them. But it gets worse. This is where, because right here, obviously, that's an ideological difference that we have. okay? What we just watched. That's an ideological difference. And you probably, if you're watching this podcast, you probably carry those ideological thoughts that we have, which is a biblical worldview where we believe in unity, where Christ died for all people, where Christ, he covered every one of us. We're all guilty of sin, and so we don't need to divide in that way. But here we are. Now, I want you to see how it's affecting our education system. This right here, what I'm about to show you, is in Fort Worth once again, because I know the most about our city. This is in Fort Worth. It's a teacher training where I want you to hear what she says is her first language. This is for teachers to come in, watch this video very quickly, and then we're going to talk about it.
Dr. Cardera, ready?
Hello, everyone. I want to start by thanking Fort Worth Independent School District Racial Equity Office for having me today. I want to thank the staff who I've been working with for the last several months for making this process a fluid one and a smooth one. You all have been amazing, and I want to thank you for that. I want to thank the participants for joining today to have this conversation about Black English, which is my first language.
Can you believe that she said her first language is Black English? I'm sorry, ma'am, but that's not a real language. I'm sorry, ma'am, but that's not how we should be teaching students. What bothers me may be the reason in 2019 that only 34% of Fort Worth ISD third grade students were reading at or above their grade level, according to the state of Texas Assessments of Academic Readiness data, is because instead of teaching our students to read and write and do arithmetic, we are indoctrinating them with leftist woke ideologies. It has to stop. It has to stop. Look, they might know the difference between English and Black English. What is that? But for some reason, they can't read. This is the problem with our education system. There is no accountability. We need real leaders that are going to step in and say, here's the standard that we're going by. Here's the rate of success. Here's how we unify our communities. That's who we should be voting for. Now, on a separate note, let's talk about vaccine mandates. We see this everywhere. We see vaccine mandates coming in all over the place through government, through our airlines. We see it through our businesses. Here's the issue, is that we are asking someone to do an experimental vaccine just so that we can, virtue signal to a certain group of people, and then it's being labeled as an act of love. Now, let me just say this, and I say this all the time. I am not anti-vaccine. I am anti-mandate. If you want to get the jab, that's your prerogative. You do you. That's totally cool. For me, I'm about freedom. I'm about liberty, meaning that I believe that all Americans have the ability to cognitively decide for them and their families whether that vaccine is right for you. Just like I believe in freedom of religion. If you want to follow some off-cult religion, you know what? That's on you. I believe that we are called to have the freedom. It is the free will that has made this country so great. So when I hear an elected official say that their number one goal is to get children vaccinated inside of our school system. Number one goal, not job growth, which Lord knows that every city in America needs that after the lockdowns and the shutdowns that happened in our country. Not job growth. No. And they didn't say we were going to lower property taxes. God knows that we need that here in Fort Worth, Texas. It didn't say that my number one goal is to make sure that small businesses stay healthy. No. Number one goal is to get children vaccinated? That's lunacy. That's crazy. This illness that we've been battling for the last year, 2 years, this right here, it's been proven that it doesn't even affect children in the same way that it affects adults. We have to become awakened to the fact that this cannot happen. Look, all I'm saying is this. I'm anti-vaccine mandate because it's not a communist nation. This is a republic. It means that we're led by the people, which brings us to something that was pretty surprising. Probably for the first time that I've ever seen. The CDC put out a post, okay, that's probably the most honest thing they've ever said. But can I just say this? It's too little, too late. And I'm bringing it up for one reason. This is what they said. They said it's considering pulling COVID vaccines because guess what? The Johnson & Johnson vaccine has been proven to cause possible blood clots. The Johnson & Johnson has been proven to cause possible blood clots. Now, let me just educate anyone in the space today that doesn't know this. All vaccines are experimental to a degree for a season. But something tells me that we have had knowledge of this for quite some time, that these blood clots are happening. People are dying. Look, we look at Israel. It's the most vaccinated country in the world, and yet they have some of the highest COVID death rates. Why? Because this is an experimental drug that we should have the freedom to take. If you are at high risk, fantastic, do your thing. But here we are with the facts in our face that now the CDC has come out and gotten honest. Are we supposed to applaud them? Or was this the moment that I hope we are learning to not blindly trust the government, but to do our due diligence in challenging things when they're put before us? That's what's important here. And that's what I want you to grasp. One of the things that we want to expose in For Liberty and Justice is just the free will to challenge when government officials try to make blanket statements on your life. Why can we not challenge when a school board member says, hey, our whole school is racist? Why can we not challenge when someone says, we're going to vaccinate your kid? Why can we not challenge when our president says, oh no, we did the right thing pulling everyone out of Afghanistan, and all of a sudden we still have American citizens that are sitting in Afghanistan alone, leaving the dogs out there, for God's sakes, watching people die on social media? Why can we not challenge the methods that have been done right here in the United States? Why can we not challenge whether our president is competent enough to do the job? Why can we not challenge whether they are capable of getting things done? Why can we not challenge when we see something corrupt in the government? This is what I'm trying to get you to see. That if the CDC got it wrong about the Johnson & Johnson, what else have they gotten wrong? And that we have been too afraid, maybe even too ignorant, to challenge. I'm asking us to challenge the system that's in front of us, because maybe, just maybe, we as Americans know what's best for our lives and for our children's lives. Hey, coming up in just a second, I am going to introduce a very special guest. I'm very excited about it. This special guest is a true patriot, and when we come back, you're going to be excited. This is someone who challenges the system. This is someone who believes that the American people have the right to dictate their lives and have the freedom and the liberty to fight for what they believe is true. Stay tuned. All right, we're back right here. We have a special guest today, and I'm so excited to get to talk with him about his race, about what's going on. His name is Tim O'Hare. He is running for Tarrant County Judge, and I'm not going to say too much about him, but all you need to know is he is a real patriot, and we are with him at For Liberty and Justice. So, Tim, take it away. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and tell us what a county judge does.
You bet. Nate, good to be with you. So I'm Tim O'Hare. I'm a Christian. God is the center of my life. I'm married to a lovely lady, Kristen, and we have 4 children, 4 little girls, ages 10, 9, 7, and 4. I am running for Tarrant County Judge, and I'll tell you why I'm running. We need more people in this country. We need more people in Tarrant County, more people in Texas who are willing to stand up for God's kingdom in public office.
That's right.
Who are willing to say no to the nonsense that the far left keeps spewing and keeps trying to shove down our throats and the throats of our children. County judge, it's not a judge in a black robe that sits on a bench and rules over trials. It's more like the mayor of the county, but it is probably the most important position in the county over any other, because the county judge has the emergency management authority over the county and is one of only 3 votes needed to pass what in Tarrant County is literally a $2 billion budget.
Man.
And if you know anything about what has happened all across this state, which we know you do, it's the county judges in counties all across Texas, especially in Dallas County and even in Tarrant County, that shut down churches, that shut down businesses, that require mask mandates. We need a strong, conservative, patriotic American, God-fearing person who will do the right thing, stand up when we need to stand up, and restore common sense to our public offices. So that's why I'm running. It's an incredibly important position.
Man, you're not kidding. That got me fired up. I'm ready to go. Let's go. Right now, you jumped into this race. Now you've held office before. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure, yeah. So I was born and raised in Farmers Branch, and I was a city councilman there when I was in my early 30s, and ultimately I ran for mayor. Farmers Branch used to be an amazing community that really started suffering. Crime was on the rise. Schools were failing. Hospitals on the verge of bankruptcy. Somebody had to step up and do something. I ran, got elected. When I first got elected, it was probably 1 against 5. And within a few months, I won people over to try to change the direction of the community. And we did a lot of great things. And we restored our neighborhoods, and we made our schools better. Our hospital is now thriving. And we did a lot of good stuff, and we stood up for godly conservative values.
Well, let me interrupt. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
When we talk about, like you said, you were 1 of 5 in the race?
1 of 5 people on the council, including the mayor.
On the council. Got
so
it.
it was 1 against 5, basically.
Yeah, 100%. So, like, talk to me, like, how did you win a race like that? Like, especially, there's probably people watching that are like, man, I could never run for office. I could never run for a school board. I could never run for anything like that. Like, was it money? Was it influence? What was the strategy that set you apart to be able to jump in that first race?
Yeah, so what I did was I just spoke to the people about what we all knew that we needed. So Farmers Branch was not on an uphill swing.
Yeah.
It was on a downhill slide. And people knew it. People were moving out left and right, and the schools were failing, and just neighborhoods were in decline, and shopping centers were in decline. And so I spoke about it. Instead of trying to say, hey, it's all wonderful, it's great, vote for me. No, I told the truth.
Come on.
And when
That's
people,
rare in politics
it's
today.
very rare. And when people tell the truth and acknowledge the reality, people say, no, wait a minute, he's right. It also requires, to be able to do that, you got to kind of be able to understand, okay, what's going on, what's happening, and what do people want? So fortunately, what I wanted for our community is what most people wanted for the community, and so I got elected. After 3 years being on the council, I had people coming, to me in droves saying, you have got to run for mayor. I did run for mayor, and against a very well-funded opponent who was very hardworking, and I ended up beating him by, I think, 30 points.
Come on. That's awesome.
But it was because I did what I said I was going to do.
Yeah.
I was honest. I wasn't shy about my Christian faith. I wasn't shy about my love for America.
Come on.
And I spoke honestly and told the truth and didn't speak in that political hyperbole. If I said I was going to do something, I did it. Or I could explain why it didn't work because I didn't have enough votes.
Well, that's brilliant. You know, I love what you said of just like, I didn't speak in the political hyperbole. I think people want real. They want authentic. They want to hear what you're going to do, and they want to hear it in their terms. You know, even in the race that we're in right now in District 93, what I found is even door to door, talking to people, they want to understand things in a new way. And when we're talking about it, like, okay, what is critical race theory? And we kind of dug into that. And you talk about hot topics today. You know, we've talked about it on the show already, but, you know, talking about critical race theory, something you did was so special in Southlake. You had so much influence in flipping that Southlake board. Speak to that. Speak to it, because
Sure.
we need hope in Fort Worth for that.
Yeah.
Right now we're in a tough place in Fort Worth and in some of our school districts. So speak some hope into us. How did that happen?
Yes, Fort Worth is in a tough place, but there is hope.
Yes.
So after I ran for mayor and got elected, while I was running for mayor, actually, I met my wife. And so we decided after my term as mayor, 6 years in office, we decided to move to Southlake for the schools. Amazing school district, great, strong conservative community. So we lived over here. And we were enjoying life. I was coaching the kids' soccer teams.
The best.
I'm deacon at my church. My wife does all kinds of things with the PTO and goes up to their schools, and we're very heavily involved in church. And last summer, July of 2020, the Southlake Carroll School Board put forth a document that they were going to vote on in 72 hours called the Cultural Competence Action Plan. And the Cultural Competence Action Plan should have been named the Socialist Marxist CRT infused plan.
For sure.
And we all know that in public education that they're trying to indoctrinate kids.
Yeah.
And that public education is in some trouble. And people think it's not in trouble as much in Texas. It is. People thought it wasn't in trouble in Southlake. It was.
Right.
And when they put this out, I created an organization called Southlake Families. We organized an army of parents, grassroots volunteers.
When you say army, you mean hundreds. I mean hundreds of people.
Hundreds of people inside
Unreal.
Southlake. And the Southlake Carroll School District has most of Southlake, parts of Grapevine, parts of Colleyville, parts of Keller, parts of, even Westlake. And parents organized, and we gave them things to do, open records requests to find out, okay, well, what's going on here? Where does this come from? And the corruption we exposed was something else. We also found just all sorts of self-dealing and trustees communicating outside of the boundaries of the Texas Open Meetings Act, communicating about what they were going to do, how they were going to vote, and we let parents know about it. We recruited people to run for office. We sued the school district to stop them from implementing critical race theory.
Come on.
A Tarrant County District Court judge gave it a TRO, and then we got people elected to the school board this past May of 2021, but that didn't give us the majority. One of the people that just didn't see the world the way we do quit in June, so we had a special election in November, and in November, we elected another person with a huge majority, and that gave us 4 conservatives on the school board. This past Monday night, they voted to permanently get rid of all CRT, get rid of the Cultural Competence Action Plan. And it's so the hope that I will give people is people are tired of this.
Yeah.
And people are ready to stand up and fight. They just need somebody to show them the way. So somebody like Nate will stand up and fight and show them the way. I'll stand up and fight and show them the way. I am not running for office because I need a job.
Right.
This would be a massive pay cut
For sure.
I'm not running for office because I want to be important. I get all the importance I need from my wife and kids at home. I am running because when good people sit by and do nothing, evil prevails.
Right.
And it is time for people to stand up and say, enough's enough.
That's right.
We're not going to let this happen to our country. And here's the really encouraging thing. We saw it happen in Southlake.
Yes.
And we were successful.
Yeah.
It was a win.
Oh, huge.
And so often you have people that run for office that say, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, and then they never actually can get any of it done.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's because they just don't know how to get it done. Sometimes it's because they don't have the courage to get it done.
Yeah.
You gotta know how to do it, and you got to have the courage to do it. I know people like you and I have both, and that's why we delivered a significant win in Southlake, and now there are groups like Southlake Families that I formed, forming all over Tarrant County, all
Keller
over the
Family
Metroplex.
Alliance, to name one. I mean, they're just right there. They're all in. You know, you said something that so hit me. You said, there was a school board member that didn't see the world as you did, and so he just quit. And isn't that just like the left? That they don't stick it out, but they just kind of move out. They're like, okay, you know what? That's fine. And I feel like that's hope in a sense of if we can show these school boards, whether you're watching from Tarrant County, whether you're watching from anywhere, a parent, a concerned citizen, a taxpayer. I mean, if you're a taxpayer, you have a say in the school district. And, when we're looking at this, I feel like if we can show that this is what America feels, we're going to gain the momentum in this.
There's no doubt about it. And here, this is what we're dealing with. So my opponent in my county judge race is a well-known former mayor of Fort Worth, Betsy Price. When she became mayor of Fort Worth was solid Republican.
Yeah.
But her policies, things she stood for, she's raised money for Planned Parenthood. She supported the Joe Biden infrastructure plan.
What a joke.
She's went and lobbied Congress for more gun control. She raised taxes on the average Fort Worth homeowner 53% over 10 years. Some of them saw their taxes double.
Oh, I felt it.
She closed down businesses during the pandemic, but told people, sorry, you can't open your business, and encouraged churches to close, but then left open an exception for abortion providers.
Wow.
When she got elected mayor of Fort Worth was solid Republican.
Yeah.
10 years later, it was solid Democrat, with Joe Biden beating President Trump 60% to 38% last November. We cannot let her take this, because if she does, she'll turn Tarrant County blue. And let me tell you, when you have Dallas County blue and you have Tarrant County blue, Denton and Collin aren't far behind.
Yeah.
And if the DFW Metroplex is blue, that means Texas, we lose it. And if you lose Texas, America as we know it is over.
Yeah. No, it's the red wall. It's the red wall. Looking at it, one of the things that I so appreciate about you, if you've taken on this fight, your opponents are well funded, but the reality is you have a grassroots army that's behind you. I mean, I've seen it. You guys just gave out signs, and it was like an endless line at your house of just people that are all in. We don't have a lot of time left, but I do just want to share this. You mentioned how we flipped these school boards in Southlake, how you guys did that. I want to, just for every parent out there that feels powerless, for every parent in Tarrant County County or in any other county, you may be in Arizona, California. We have viewers that are watching from everywhere. But for every person out there, what would be the last thing you would tell them if they have a passion to do it, they're committed to change for their kids? So many of our parents are like, I would put them in private school, but the reality is we don't have the money. I want to believe in our public education. Great. What is the solution for a parent watching? How can they bring real change? First steps, what would you say to them?
People so often say, what can I do? It's hopeless. It isn't. We proved in Southlake, people that stand up and fight can win.
Come on.
And what I would say you got to do, you got to get down on your knees and pray.
Yeah.
You got to go to work. And we have to start treating politics the way the left does. What we do is we go out and vote every 2 years or 4 years or 1 year, whatever the case may be, and then we forget about politics. And then we go back to our homes and our churches and our families. They eat, sleep, drink, and breathe politics all day long, every day, all year. We've got to be involved. Plan on spending 2 hours a week for the rest of your life on something political.
Brilliant.
And if we just do that, our policies are best.
Yeah.
Our ideas are best. Their ideas are ruining what is a blessed nation that has done more good for the world than all the nations in the history of the world combined, and they're trying to tear it down. We have to stand up and fight for it. If you give a little bit of time, money, energy, and effort, we absolutely will take back our country.
Come on. So good. Tim, thank you so much for being on. We so appreciate you. He's headed to his kid's soccer game right now. That's the type of person we need elected. Hey, thanks so much for watching the For Liberty and Justice podcast, where we exist to mobilize the church, wake up the city, and stand for liberty and justice. Hey, we can't wait to see you next week. Stay tuned. Hey, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We want you to subscribe, jump in, get involved, share this video, and we'll see you next week.